I'd like to call to order the September 26, 2023 meeting of the City of West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board. Can we please begin with a roll call?
David Burke.
Here.
Trent Swift. Let the record reflect that Trent is not in attendance today. James Murphy.
Present.
Amanda Skyer.
Here.
Kristen Kellogg. Let the record reflect that Kristen is not in attendance today. Dan Pickney.
Here.
Todd McLean.
Here.
Gabe Jaroslavaki.
Here.
And Jeff Sheldon.
Okay, thank you. We now move on to approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda by staff?
No, Madam Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda by members of the board?
I have a question about the agenda. I don't think we've spoken, or I'm not sure what the process is for pulling items from the consent. Can you go over that, Anne or Amanda? I don't know who's, or the Melissa, whoever's the appropriate person to explain what happens.
So generally what happens after the agenda is finalized is if a commissioner or a board member wants to change the agenda, they would need to make a motion, and then it would be voted on by the board.
So you're saying that would be that would happen after we approved the agenda or before?
It would be during...
As you're approving it?
Yeah, I would like to move these items be pulled off consent, then you'd put it up for a vote to the board.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to place all 4 consent agenda items on the continued cases before us today.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay. Nay.
2 nays? Okay. The ayes have it. Our modified agenda is all of the consent will be moved to continued, because I believe they're all continued cases, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on to approval of the minutes from August 22nd. Do we have any changes to the minutes as presented in your packet?
No.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
I approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes approved. We now move on to the report of the Historic Preservation Planner.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson. We don't currently have the numbers for staff approvals at the moment with the changeover to the new system. We're still working on how those are reported. As far as general communications, we do have a new board member. Everyone please welcome Jeff Sheldon. He'll be serving as an alternate right now, although tonight I believe he is actually serving as a voting member. So congratulations and welcome to the board.
Great, thank you. We now move on to remarks by the chairperson. The matters before us this evening are quasi-judicial in nature, and we ask you to please keep that in mind. We do base our decisions on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. For each project, the applicant will have an opportunity to present first. 10 minutes for each application. If there is a demolition involved, which I do believe we have one on the agenda this evening, 15 minutes will be allocated. After the applicant presents, staff will then make their presentation, and we will then open it up to public comment, which will be limited to 3 minutes per person. After public comment, if there is any, the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal, which will then be followed by executive, sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied today, our executive session where we will render a decision. So to lead into this, we need to let you know if we've had any conversations outside of this meeting. So we will now begin with a declaration of ex parte.
As to all matters on tonight's agenda, I, David Burke, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to the matter of all items on tonight's September 27th, 2023, September 26th, a Historic Preservation Board meeting, I, James Murphy, have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigations. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to all matters on the agenda, I did speak to Ann Hamilton, the preservation planner, about those items. I have not received written communications. I've not conducted an investigation. I've not made site visits, nor have I received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record. There you go.
As to all matters of the agenda this evening, I, Jeff Sheldon, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to the matter of all items on this evening's agenda, I, Dan Pickney, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matters of tonight's agenda, I, Todd McLean, have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matter of all cases in tonight's agenda, I, Gabe Jaslapski, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Okay, thank you. We now move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there anyone here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight? Now is the time to do so. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the swearing in of our speakers. If you are an applicant, a property owner, if you are here for public comment, please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Please be seated. Our first continued case for the evening is case number 23-34, 217 Almeria Road.
Hello, my name is Davis Tambrin from YRA. I am the architect for this project. We have redesigned the new residence located at 217 Almira Road in the El Cid Historical District from our last presentation. We are proposing the demolition of a single-story, non-contributing residence with an attached garage and proposing the construction of a two-story Mediterranean-style residence with a detached garage. There will be an outdoor living area at the front and rear of the residence. From the last meeting, we redesigned the residence, listening to the comments and suggestions from the board and staff. As you can see, we have decreased the size and massing of the house. From the previous design, we have lowered the ridge, lowered the ceiling height on the first and second floor, decrease the area of the residence, and decrease the maximum floor area ratio. We eliminated the second-story guest suite over the garage and eliminated the balcony at the rear of the house. The floor plan has also been revised and offers variation in the planes of the front, rear, and side elevations. The home is located on the north side of Almera. We have positioned the new residence on the 9,000 square foot lot to the west side of the property to allow for the placement of the single-story, single-car garage on the east side at the rear of the property. The residence has been designed with various architectural elements found in the neighborhood. The home will be finished with a Palm Beach knockdown stucco finish. We have designed the home with windows like the style of windows seen at 207 Almera, but in a dark bronze finish. The windows at the front of the house will have clear glass. We have emulated the other details of the neighborhood, such as the cast stone sill, like at the residence at 219 Almera, railings similar to that at 225 Almera, an arch entrance similar to 210 and 241 Almera, and outriggers similar to the ones found at 228 and 210 Almera. The roof will be a variated color barrel tile roof. We have also incorporated other architectural features found in the district and at the recommendation of staff. Those are the front porch to the east of the entrance with arches and arched windows to make it less symmetrical, an eyebrow roof with brackets over the kitchen window on the side elevation, a front balcony, cast stone headers, and a wood trellis over the garage. All these elements create a unique and intimate, cohesive design. The streetscape shows that our house is proportional to the Mediterranean homes flanking either side of the proposed residence. The roof plan shows the two-story portion of the home and the garage roof having a 5 and 12 pitch, and the single-story part of the home having a roof pitch of 4 and 12. The streetscape shows both sides of the street with the existing houses shown. This is the house that we are proposing to demolish. These slides show the renderings of the house as proposed with the landscaping that the owner has been working on with the landscape architect as requested. I'm glad to have had the opportunity to resubmit this residence for your review and comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
I have a couple questions about the overhang and the outlookers. I like the outlookers, but I'm just wondering if you think the overhang is just a little too big. I think you have it at 2 feet.
Yes.
Could that be reduced some?
Yes, we can reduce it. That's
Okay.
not a problem. That would not be an issue.
And then the very front elevation, I guess it's the west, those French doors,
Yes.
are those fixed or? I just find that they're, like, I can see them working in the back of the house, but in the front of the house, I don't think those doors are historically contributing, and that.
Well, the center door is a swing door, and the other two are side lights.
Okay,
So they can use a front patio area that's set up. They want to use that.
I see.
And that front patio is also calculated in the calculations that we needed to provide for impervious lot coverage for the front yard.
Is there another more traditional historical set of doors you could do there, or?
We thought this was in keeping with what was in the neighborhood, so that's why we used this as a spring point based on the other homes in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I like the house, though.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think you responded very well to a lot of the comments. Is it a smooth stucco finish, or is it,
Palm Beach knockdown finish, so it has a slight texture to it.
there is a texture. I thought I saw that on the renderings. Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-34 for demolition and new construction at 217 Almeria Road. This lot is located on the north side of Almeria Road in the El Cid Historic District. This was originally continued from the June 2023 meeting. The request was for demolition of this 1953 non-contributing structure and new construction of a new two-story Mediterranean-style single-family home of approximately 3,958 square feet, which includes a rear garage and pool cabana. This is the proposed site plan, proposed roof plan. This was the original first floor plan, which included a one-car garage and did not have the front porches. And the proposed first floor plan. The original second floor plan, as you can see, the garage originally had a guest suite over it. And the currently proposed second floor plan. This was the original front elevation that was proposed by the applicant, and this is the revised front elevation. As you can see, they've added that side porch, both on the ground and second story, and those French doors that were referenced earlier, as well as 2 arched windows over the entry rather than 3. The original side elevations and the revised side elevations, the other side, and the rear. This is the streetscape, which shows that it fits in well with the Mediterranean character on the street, and some updated renderings. Staff believes that this meets the review criteria for demolition, as this is a non-contributing structure and will not represent an irreparable loss to the El Cid Historic District or the City of West Palm Beach. We also believe that it meets the Secretary of Interior standards and Historic Preservation Ordinance, and are recommending approval with these 2 conditions. All windows shall have clear glass and bronze frames with low-E coating permissible in side and rear elevations, and that the trellis feature above the guest house garage door shall be wood rather than composite material. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
And are you okay with the overhang reducing by 6 inches to make it 6?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
I think that was a good catch. How do you feel about the door on the balcony? That it looks like it's a solid wood door?
So are you specifically talking about the one here?
Yes, on the front.
I think they could explore a French door to echo the one on the ground floor. I know that that was, I guess, a question earlier, so I don't know if a different style would be more appropriate, but I also don't mind the solid door.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of any precedent in the neighborhood where I've seen, typically I think they have lights in them. Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
First, I'm curious, for when we pull the items, or when one of the commissioners has a concern with one of the items on consent, it may not be reflective, or at least for me, my thought is it may not be reflective on that it's wrong, but it's rather that this commission spent so much time giving direction and probably felt it appropriate for that to be represented to staff. I'm sorry, to the commission again, rather than at the hands of staff. But I don't want to speak for Todd, but at least that's how I was looking at the consent items, that we did spend so much time on some of them, at least two in my opinion, and that we wanted to, give, the applicant the acknowledgement and the courteous reception to present to us, and we can provide feedback saying good job and things like that.
Yeah, when an item is on a consent, we can't comment about some changes, and I noticed the eave was a little bigger than it should be on this property. There's no precedence in LCID to have that big of an overhang, so that's one of the reasons I pulled this project, but I think it's great improvement. I really like the front elevation and the changes that the architect and the team made, and I would support this project with the change of the eave and the other two items that the staff is requesting.
I agree with you that the second floor door should be a French door with glass, not solid.
Would you be amenable to adding that as a condition as well?
I think if this is going to become a regular procedure to pull items from the consent list, then as the applicant has done, he should present the plan with the changes that the board had requested. And if we acknowledge that those changes have been made, other than the kind of comments that have been made, kind of minimal comments, that should really be it. I wouldn't personally want to see this deteriorating into nitpicking applicants and adding items long after they've been discussed very thoroughly in a previous meeting.
I understand your concerns. I also, though, would like to say that it is helpful to have a full presentation to understand the changes that have occurred. For instance, this packet did not have the previous submittal. So when I spoke with Anne, it was helpful to me to see where we started and where we are now to understand if there was any further that we could go. So I think that was very helpful in having that presentation from staff. But certainly, I think it's a much quicker conversation the second time around if they have responded as well as this applicant has to our feedback. So with that, any further discussion? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll try to make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 23-34 for 217 Almera. In accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 9449 of the city's zoning and land development regulation. This motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent, substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made condition, hold on, just pull them up, made condition upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. The conditions are that all windows shall have clear glass and bronze frames with low E coating, permissible on side and rear elevations. The trellis features above the guest house garage door shall be wood rather than composite material. The eaves shall be reduced by 6 inches, and the second floor balcony door changed from a solid door to a French door.
Just to interject, I think because this is a demolition.
Oh, yes. Can we make this motion?
And then
We
we'll do a
follow
demo.
through with this
Sure, but
motion
next
and then
time-
do the demolition motion.
Sure, but generally, I
Eh,
think,
That goes first, yes.
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 thank you for catching
Thank
that,
you.
Ann.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So if we can now have a motion for the demolition, please.
I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application 2334 for demolition in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-9 of the City's Zoning and Land Development Regulation. This motion is based on testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project approved, thank you. Our next case is 619 Palm Street.
Generally, we want people to send them to us beforehand, so next time if you could do that. Or you don't want me to get up now? Oh, no, I do, but,
Hi, my name is Stephen Yeckes. I'm a registered architect and applicant for the project on 619 Palm Street. I got a lot of comments on the first try, and so what I did was provide you with drawings which on the same sheet had the former submission, and right next to that has the newly proposed. In this way, you can take a look at the changes that were made. Oh, great. I knew it. Anyhow, those are the photos of the, let me see if I can get one to load. Nope. I don't know why this format doesn't work. Anyhow, this is a very badly fire damaged project. The fire occurred mostly in the rear of the project. It's a frame, one-story structure. There was severe fire damage in approximately half of the floor plan, and then the rest of the project had severe char and smoke damage. So if we go to the site plan, I hope this opens. Yeah. Okay. So if we go to the floor plan, which is on the edge there, I've given you two site plans. The one to the left is the prior site plan, which was submitted, and the one is the now proposed site plan. The comments were that there was too much wasted space, the project was too wide, the addition, which is going to be two-story, was too far in the front, which I did, by the way, because I'm going to have to replace a lot of the structure inside. But as you can see from the proposed, I did move the project back. It was made smaller. The original site plan had a 30% lot coverage. This one has 28.6. The original project had a 0.45 FAR, and this one has a 0.43 FAR, which means I made it smaller. So if I go to the first floor plan, and it's sideways on this presentation, but also the same situation. To the left is the prior floor plan, or to the top on that screen, and to the right is the prior. You can't tell from this, but I will show you the second floor, that the addition, the second floor addition was pushed quite a ways back. You can tell from this that the project was narrowed. It's not as high as it was, and it doesn't come on so strong, particularly in the two-story area. And I've preserved the front area to keep the front elevation exactly the same as it was. Okay, if you look at the second floor, you can see much more easily. Again, the top is the prior submission, and the bottom is the proposed new. The front was set much farther back from the chimney, which was a request from the board. It was almost right on top of the chimney. It's now over 7 feet back. It makes for a less imposing second floor. You can also see that the second floor is 3 foot 7 inches narrower, and I've taken off the balcony in the back. So the addition doesn't go as high because it's simply narrower. Okay, going to the elevations. I don't know why it's backwards, but anyhow, this is in your package. This is sheet A3. And A3 will show you, again, that from the proposed to the prior, it's 3 feet 7 inches narrower in the front, 7 feet 2 in the it's narrower, 3 feet 7 inches, and the front is 7 foot 2 back, which I've already explained. And then on sheet A4, which you also should have in your packet, A4 shows a 6'1" narrower rear elevation, and the balcony was taken off, so it's a much less imposing rear as well. I've taken out a lot of the wasted space and made a smaller floor plan. It's a less high structure. The ground floor has got a ceiling height in the 2-story space of 9 feet, and the second story is 8 feet 1. Primarily done, not because I wanted it that low, but to make a less imposing second floor. So I've taken a lot of the meat out of this project in response to all of your comments. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, we appreciate that. Questions of the applicant?
There is a condition of approval from staff that the addition shall be stucco.
Yes,
Are you
that's
okay
no
with that?
problem. I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you. Do you have a roof plan? Because the package doesn't have a roof plan.
Well, actually, I submitted a roof plan in the last submittal. The only difference is that the second floor is just slightly back. The front of the roof is preserved the way it was. So I didn't do a new roof plan, no.
So you are restoring the front, the historic portion that remains, right?
Well, I'm trying to just put it back the way it was. If you look at the photos, which I did put in your packet, the front shows smoke damage coming out of the front vent, which shows that the smoke damage went all throughout the house. So there's going to be a lot of replacement, repair, restoration, but the front elevation is maintained as it was, even the roof.
Because, the reason of my question is because in the front elevation, I don't quite understand how the overhang of the gable end can overlap the hip roof. That is what I don't quite understand.
Well, the building was made narrower. The second floor was made narrower. The actual front elevation of the one-story portion is as existing, so the roof goes past the building now because the second story is narrower.
But you see in the front elevation that
Yeah.
the fascia of the lower gable end, what is supposed to be the existing elevation, right?
Yes.
And there is an overhang that overlaps the hip roof. I don't know how that can happen. I don't know if it's a drafting mistake or,
Well,
you understand what I mean?
not really, because I don't see a hip roof. I see
Well,
gables and I see shed roof, but I don't see a hip roof.
in the front elevation, I can show you here on the screen if you want.
Sure.
You see how that overlaps the other roof? I don't know how that can happen. If I can make it bigger, there you go. How that can happen, I don't understand. Oh, okay, that is what I don't understand.
Just comes out a couple of feet, and that's existing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there a way to reduce the second story roof? The pitch seems awfully high. What is that pitch?
The pitch is exactly matching the existing.
Matching
If
it
you-
is.
If you change the pitch on the second floor, it's gonna look awkward.
Okay,
So I tried to make it narrower and lower to make that height less than the prior submission.
okay. And then with the staff comments, the entire addition is going to be smooth stucco to differentiate the old from the new, is that?
Yes, the second story portion that I'm adding on is gonna be smooth stucco.
What about between the eaves up on your pitch in the front?
If that's what was requested, that's not the way I drew it,
I
but
don't know, I'd
that
like to
condition was imposed
Maybe see what
later.
Gabriel would think about having that be siding like it's shown.
I think it would look better with siding because it would match the existing first story on the front.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you for really listening. At least some of the comments that I know, I gave you a pretty hard time last time.
You did.
Thanks for reminding me. I think the additional 7 feet or giving that chimney a little breathing room really helps, as well as formulating that pristine front portion that you are retaining, as well as alleviating the mass from the street, and the profile reduction so that the new addition doesn't stick further out on the east side, I think is very responsive. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any further questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-32 for partial demolition and addition at 619 Palm Street. This was continued from the June 27th, 2023 meeting. This property is located in the Grandview Heights neighborhood on Palm Street. It was damaged by an electrical fire. You can see the pictures here. On the right is the current home. The applicant is proposing to demolish the parts of this structure that were damaged by fire and then add a new addition of approximately 1,285 square feet. You can see this is the proposed site plan. Highlighted on the top and the side are the new proposal. The prior proposal is what you saw before. That is on the bottom and the left. This is the demolition plan, what is intended to be removed. I think most of that has been damaged beyond repair. That's the rationale behind removing it. Here's the proposed first floor plan. The current submittal is on the right. The old submittal is on the left. As you can see, a lot of that mass has been pulled away from the front. This is the proposed second floor plan, which again you can see was set further back by the applicant. These are the existing elevations, and then the older proposal and the new proposal is on the top. These are the rear and right elevations, and same, the current proposal is on the top. As you can see, most of the massing has been shifted to the back. The rear balcony has been eliminated. We believe that this meets standards 9 and 10 and the Historic Preservation Ordinance, and are recommending approval with the condition that the addition shall feature a smooth stucco finish to differentiate it from the original structure. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
And would you be okay with the addition being stucco siding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus just a smooth stucco?
I think that it will still differentiate it enough.
Me too. Okay, thank you.
Why we don't, if that is the case, why we don't do a real siding on the first floor and then we do stucco on the second floor?
That would also be acceptable.
Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Since we just had two motions for the last project, does this need any separate motion for demolition?
Since this one isn't a full demolition, I think they're just demolishing damaged parts. I think the
Okay.
application is considered under an addition rather than a demolition. So no, only one motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any members of the public that would like to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into executive session. Any discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
Again, if this is going to be a regular procedure, it's my opinion that Ms. Hamilton, or staff, I should say, should not give a review of the project as if we were seeing it for the first time, and that her presentation should be limited to showing the changes that the board has recommended in comparison with the original plan, as she indicated in her last few slides, and that should be basically it.
I understand your point for the sake of time. However, we do have two board members that were not here at the last meeting. And since they are voting, I think it is helpful to give more of an overview than.
No, I recognize that.
Okay.
I recognize that by the question, so of course that's reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
So I really like the changes. I appreciate the applicant listening to all of our comments. One of the reasons I brought this back from consent to a continued case is I was confused about the stucco, that it was a staff recommendation. I can't make a recommendation, and I'd like to hear Gabe's idea on where he thinks there should be smooth stucco or siding, because I know he has opinion and I value his opinion.
Yes, so the reason is because, I understand that additions should be differentiated from the historic right portion. Now, in this case, because it was fire, I can see that we can have the siding restored on the first floor, right? And the addition would be the second floor that will have the stucco. And I've done simulated stucco siding before, and really doesn't look like siding. There are constraints about the dimensions, and I prefer if we go in that direction, or we do everything stucco like staff recommends, or if we go in your direction, I would do real siding on the first floor and stucco on the second floor.
What about this eave here?
That is a good one. Probably should be siding.
Yeah, that's my problem, is that front elevation, if that was stucco, sorry. if that was stucco, I think it would look funny. That's why I thought maybe
Yeah.
that should be.
I would do
stucco
siding. He is referring to the gable end, you know, the siding shown in the gable end.
Okay.
Do you want to add an attic vent while you're at it?
Say again?
I said, do you want to add an attic vent while you're at it?
Sure. And we said the first floor of the addition, well, it's really going to be, never mind. I just answered my own question. I'd like to make a motion. I move that the Historic Board approve application number 23-32 for alterations, additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 94.9 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. This motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent and substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Specifically, the conditions are that the gable ends shall be siding with a vent. The first floor shall be siding, and the second floor addition shall be smooth stucco.
Okay. The first part of your condition, is that just the gable ends on the second floor, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And
We have-
should all the additional conditions be added? The ones listed by staff?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that other condition. Right here, just this one.
Oh, yes, it's the stucco.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So-
Yeah.
All right, yeah, there's no additional recommend.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Yeah.
looking at.
He was looking
So
at
it's
additional.
addressed.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we clear on our motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project approved. Thank you. Our next case is 23-48, 732 Flamingo Drive.
Hello, I'm Joseph Charletta, the owner of 732 Flamingo Drive. Tonight I am presenting the redesign of 732 Flamingo Drive. I will point out that I responded in full to the board feedback and the neighbors' comments from the original submittal. Yeah, those comments included me reducing the structure from a two-story building to a one-story addition, to reconfigure the interior floor plan, to shift some of the mass to an accessory structure, and to propose a new location for the pool. Here's photos of the existing. photos of the existing versus the proposed new elevation. Proposed site plan with the new floor plan. Front elevation. West elevation. East elevation. Rear elevation. Floor plan. The accessory building floor plan or elevation. Roof plan. And that's it. If you guys want to see the previously proposed rendering, this was it. This is with the two-story addition. And now with a single-story addition. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
No, I pulled your item because in my packet, I was still seeing a two-story house, so I was really confused. So I now, through your presentation, I appreciate you listening to us, and I like the new house very much.
Thank you.
And I agree with the staff comments, so I would support this.
Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? Well, thank you. This is like a dream when someone goes from a two-story addition to one. So thank you so much for responding to our comments so thoroughly.
Thanks.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-48 for additions and alterations at 732 Flamingo Drive. As you saw before, this is in the Flamingo Park Historic District. It was originally built in 1956. This is the existing home. The request is for demolition of an existing 800 square foot non-historic pool enclosure, a addition that has now been revised to a one-story entirely set to the rear of the existing structure, which is about 794 square feet, and a new accessory structure of approximately 400 square feet, as well as replacement of existing windows with impact windows. This is that pool enclosure that's requested to be demolished. This is the proposed site plan. The applicant has completely redesigned to move the pool to the rear corner, added an accessory structure, and reconfigured the interior floor plan as requested at the last board meeting. This is the demolition plan, the proposed ground floor plan with the new first floor and accessory building. These are the new elevations. And the elevations for the accessory structure and the roof plan. We believe it meets all applicable standards, and we are recommending approval with 3 conditions. All windows should have clear glass with white frames and low E coating permissible in sides and rear. Any replacement windows shall replicate the grid pattern and type of existing windows with dimensional muntins. Any new windows shall also have muntins added to echo the existing style. And the applicant has met this condition. It's just added to address any concerns maybe during permitting. All new windows shall feature shutters, which shall be sized to be operable. A decorative vent shall be added to the gable ends of the accessory structure to match the existing home. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Anne, or maybe Gabe, you could speak to what's a more accurate depiction of how the roof line is going to appear on the addition from the street side? There's the front elevation is very different from the rendering that was just shown. You can see a lot more of the roof line of the addition on the front elevation. So I'm just wondering, with a 3/12 pitch, how much will you see?
I mean, I think it's difficult to say unless it's in real life. I think with how far it's set back, I don't think that it's probably going to read quite as overpowering as it is in this elevation. But so I guess, in summary, I think it might actually be closer to the rendering.
Okay. Any further questions of staff?
So is this an existing condition? I wasn't here in the meeting last month, so I don't know what the existing condition is. I mean, it's a little weird that the hip roof is, the ridge of the roof is above the gable end behind.
Is there another way that they could achieve that step up in the ceiling height? Because that's the only thing that jumped out to me. I mean, obviously, I prefer this than to a two-story addition, but I don't know if there's any way to clean up the roof line.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that gable end is way back. I mean, it's deceiving in the elevation because it's way back, so
Yeah.
maybe it's not even noticeable.
Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Any members of the public that wish to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the staff conditions.
Okay,
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve, application case number 2348, 732 Flamingo Drive, for alterations, additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 94-49 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. This motion is based on testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent and substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The conditions for this approval are all windows shall have clear glass with white frames and low E coating permissible on sides and rear. Any replacement windows shall replicate the grid pattern type of existing windows with dimensional muttons. Any new windows shall also have muttons added to echo the existing style. All new windows shall feature shutters, which shall be sides to be operable. A decorative vent shall be added to the gable ends of the accessory structure to match the existing home.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project approved. Thank you very much. We appreciate you responding to our feedback. Our next case is 23-40 945 32nd Street.
So do you want to just use my presentation if you need to reference it? I just have the new ones. Or I have the plans that you sent here. So if you want to use those.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Miguel Espinoza with J&M Contractors, here regarding 945 32nd. I have responded to your comments regarding this project. If you can take a look at the front elevation, I think that's where the majority of our issues were, just making it look a little more appealing to the neighborhood. So we went ahead and changed the front entry with 2 posts, wood beam to support the front entry, and just to turn it into, instead of a stucco texture, do a, I forgot the word here, siding stucco on the home, and change the 2 windows in the front bedroom there to make it 1 window, and adding the shutters around for the home, and lowering the pitch of the roof as well to a 412 from a 512. I really hope that satisfies the board's request. Open to your feedback.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
I just had a question about those strips in the front yard. What is that?
So that is to help me maintain the square footage of the front yard that I have to maintain for the building department. There's a certain amount of landscape area that I have to maintain versus the covered driveway. So if I do a full driveway, I'm upwards of 250 plus square feet.
Okay.
And I have to remain a certain percentage of the first 1,000 square feet of the front yard. It's not ideal, but it's.
Well, so that's why I was confused, because it looks like there's, I'm just trying to find it, here you go. So it looks like there's 2 strips for, on the, to the right, on the
Be the east side, yeah.
And then you have 2 more strips, and it looks like one of the cars is going to be parking on that front entry pathway.
Correct. We can modify that, it's fine. I mean, either that, or we just make it its own walkway strip, and then we add another strip on the end. We could do that as well.
Okay. I have a few questions for staff about this, so, all right.
Okay.
That was my questions. Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-40 for new construction at 945 32nd Street. This is in the Northwood Hills Historic District. There's currently a carport structure on the site, but no actual building. So these are the neighbors. They're requesting construction of a new single-family residence of approximately 2,200 square feet. This you can see this is the site plan. Here's the roof plan, the floor plan. The applicant has revised the design to add siding to the design, added a larger window to the front, added shutters on all windows, and revised the front entry feature to be more open. This is the streetscape. It does show the original design, but still gives you an idea of the shape of the construction. We believe that this meets all criteria and are recommending approval with these 3 conditions. All windows shall feature OG muntins with the exception of the 2 small bathroom windows. All windows shall have clear glass and white frames with low E coating permissible on non-street facing elevations. And all shutters shall be sized to fit their opening in width and height and shall be composed of wood. That's rather than a composite material or something along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
And can you explain to me about the hardscape thing? He's supposed to have 1,000 square feet of landscape open space?
So yeah, of the front 25-foot setback, he either needs 1,000 square feet or 75%, whichever is less of the green space, needs to not be paved. It would be 60% if it was using permeable pavers.
So if he just uses a permeable paver, he could have a normal driveway, and then whoever buys this is not going to be parking on their front entry pathway?
That could be another option, yes,
Okay.
as long as he can meet those calculations.
What's the width of this lot?
It looks like it's 50 feet,
50? Okay.
50 by 102.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session. So here we have a couple conditions of staff, and then you have a condition as well, or a recommendation?
Yeah, I was just doing the calculations. I think if they just change their hardscape to a normal driveway, I just did the math on my phone, they're fine. If it's 50 foot and the front setback is 25, they could do a 360 square foot driveway without the strips and still have, and still meet code. So that would be my recommendation.
Great. And we just recently got approval, right, that hardscape is now within our purview? Yes. Okay. You're on a roll with the motions.
Motion, if that's okay with everybody. I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number 23-40 for 945 32nd Street for alterations, additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 9449 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted in the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. Hold on, let me just go to my conditions. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the city of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. These conditions are all windows shall feature OG muttons with the exception of the 2 small bathroom windows. All windows shall have clear glass with white frames with low E coating permissible on non-street facing elevations. All shutters shall be sized to fit their opening in width and height and shall be composed of wood, and that a minimum 360 square foot driveway be placed instead of the 4 strips that are currently being proposed. I think you understand what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries, project approved. Thank you very much. Our next continued case is HPB 2342, 3316 Greenwood Drive.
Thank you so much, man. Hello, my name is Francisco Semperio. I'm representing Atlantic Engineering, and today I'm showing 3316 Greenwood Avenue. As you can see, we revised the plans a lot in the front facade. We've changed it to a parapet roof, a missionary style home, and we've added colonial windows and instead of the regular windows, and all the windows are single hung. Next, we've also revised the setbacks to meet the required square footage that we had incorrect before. And we've also redesigned the layout a little bit. We kept the same living area in the rear just because the client wants to be able to have access to their backyard and their rear landscape if possible. And then this is the revised front elevation. As you can see, there's a hip style portion in the front, and it's all parapet roof all around. We've also eliminated the sliding glass doors in the rear and provided French doors with side lights. And then all the colonial windows now have windowsills. And as you can see the hip portion roof in the front, and then a parapet roof all around. And this is the historic preservation plan, and this is up close. As you can see, the top row from 3416 Greenwood Avenue to 3318 Greenwood Avenue is all parapet roofs. 3302 Greenwood Avenue, at the bottom right corner, is a parapet roof. However, it has a hip style portion in the front. If you could take a look at it in the bottom right corner. And then 3206 Greenwood Avenue and 3302 Greenwood Avenue is gable style roofs. And then there's 3306 Greenwood Avenue, which is a parapet roof with a gable style roof covered entry in the front. And this is the houses nearby. As you can tell, the top two rows are all gable roofs. Are all parapet roofs. And the one that's closest to us is the bottom right corner, 3232 Greenwood Avenue. You can't really tell really well, but if you zoom into the picture, it has a hip style portion in the front. And then we have 3236 Greenwood Avenue and 3302 Greenwood Avenue that have a gable style roof over it. Now, client is, this is option number 1. Client also has an option number 2 that he's requesting me to show, which is a gable style roof, if possible. And it would be matching it would still stay the same with the colonial style windows. The windows still would stay the same. A missionary style door in the front. Same site plan. The only thing that would change in this floor plan would be 2 decorated columns in the front. And this would be the gable roof. At the top would be scored stucco finish to match the 3302 Greenwood Avenue, which was a blue house. And then as you can see, it has colonial windows. And we've also had the French doors in the rear, eliminated the sliders. This is the gable roof throughout. And this is a close-up. As you can see, what we're trying to match would be 3302 Greenwood Avenue, which has a scored stucco finish in the front, and it has colonial style windows with a windowsill, and it also has decorated columns. As you can see, the blue house, which is 3302 Greenwood Avenue. And client is okay with the parapet roof. However, he is requesting, if possible, if the board deems it acceptable, to have a gable roof. Or if it's unacceptable, he's okay with the parapet roof. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
I've got one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Where do you intend on placing the soffits for the, are you going to have any ventilation for the flat roof, or?
If it's a parapet, it's going to be all
So you're just gonna have
scuppers. It's going to be
flat-
scuppers.
Say that.
If it's the parapet, it's going to be all scuppers to the side.
Okay, but I mean are you having any crawl space between?
No, there's
your
not going to be no crawling space.
No crawl
There's going to be
space.
an attic access. That's about it. Only.
Attic access, okay. But you're going from the flat roof, obviously, to the sheetrocks. You're going to have no.
Yeah, there's only going to be 24 inches from trusses, so there's not be.
So no ventilation, though.
There'll be the only R20 ventilation, if that's what you're asking me. It's all going to be insulated.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-42 for new construction at 3316 Greenwood Avenue. This site is in the Northwood Hills Historic District along Greenwood Avenue, which backs up to the railroad tracks. This is the existing site, as you can see here. It's currently vacant. The request is for proposed new construction of a one-story single-family home of approximately 1,768 square feet. The applicant did revise those square footage numbers. They now do fall within lot coverage. Here are the photos of the homes on either side of the existing site. As you can see, they're all mission-style homes, as that's the predominant style along Greenwood. Previously on the site, there was a house that was constructed in 1925 and was demolished in 1995. This is a photo we have of it. Here's the site plan, the floor plan, the front elevation. As you saw, the applicant has revised the front elevation already to address some of staff's comments. The left and right elevations, and the rear elevation, and the window and door schedule. Here's the streetscape showing that the flat parapet roof and mission styling fits far better along Greenwood Avenue than the previous proposal. And some neighborhood context showing you more of those mission style homes. We believe that this proposed new construction does meet all applicable standards and are recommending approval with these 6 conditions. The tile portions of the roof shall be roofed with a true barrel tile. All windows shall feature clear glass in either white or bronze frames with dimensional or OG muntins. Windows B and G shall be revised to 2 casements rather than a horizontal slider window. Doors E and F shall be revised to French doors rather than sliding glass doors. The windows on side elevation shall feature decorative sills to match the ones on the front elevation, and the front door shall be revised to a more appropriate mission-style door with the proposed fan light above the door eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
And what was previously presented to us?
It was a hip roof that was not really in a mission style. It was still a 1-story, but it was above lot coverage as well.
Okay. And how do you feel about that? Because I'm looking at the streetscape and the pictures given to us today, and the only problem I have with this house is seriously lacking some windows, especially on the sides. I don't know why someone would want to have such a dark house, but it seems to me that even from the original house, that there was a small barrel tile roof over just the entry, and now with this iteration, it's completely going all the way across the front.
So yes, it has spread out to be wider, which was a choice by the applicant. I would probably prefer to see it smaller, but it was previously over the entire house. It was a full hip roof over the entire house before.
Okay.
So we thought that the reduction and being a flat roof fits far better with the streetscape than the previously proposed.
I just don't know if I agree with this latest iteration with the barrel tile going all the way across. And if you look at his side elevations, it's just kind of confusing what's happening here.
So it is a hip portion in the front with a parapet in the rear. I think it could be reduced, certainly, but I'm not necessarily opposed to its existence.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ann. Is a covered porch an allowable encroachment in the front yard?
Do you mean in terms of setbacks?
Yes.
No, it would be taken from the outside of the porch
Column.
wall, yes.
Did you explore with the applicant the idea of doing a kind of an outie rather than an any front entry? I think it would be much more appropriate, and although I'm not terribly averse to it, I think it's a vast improvement to what was proposed last time. But I think that the historic photograph, as well as other mission style on Greenwood Ave, have the front covered entry with the columns that I think, there you go, I think maybe a little more charming.
I agree.
And give the front facade a little bit more depth and complexity, and may begin to resolve the issue that my colleague, Commissioner McLean, mentioned about the barrel tile going over the whole roof. I just don't know if there would elicit setback concerns with that. But otherwise, I think they did a very good job.
Any further questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Any members of the public wish to comment on this project? Okay. No, you're finished for now. Thank you. We'll now go into executive session. The same thing caught my attention about the continuous barrel tile roof, and I actually think that's a really good solution. It's to pull out that front entry feature, and so you would just have the barrel tile roof over that covered entry.
Yeah, I think that would work, and I'm not saying it needs to be only in the center. Maybe it's offset, so it's over the front entry, and I guess that's the dining room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more reflective of that historical photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some setback wiggle room because of the diagonal of the parcel size.
Sorry, I'm just confused about how this hip roof meets the parapet, and then you look at the floor plan, just something's not right there. I think I don't know if the house can get moved back just a little bit so that that entry is more prominent in the front, and that has the barrel tile, and then the hip roof, or not the hip roof, but the parapet roof would just come right out to this front edge of the house. So the floor plan and the elevations just aren't matching to me for this application. There's something off here, and I can't figure it out.
Well, I think that one of the things that is off is that why a bathroom is in the front facade, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that you will want the master bedroom to be on the front and the bath on the back.
Absolutely.
Now, in that way, you can have nice windows in the front, you can have nice windows on the side, and a small window for the bathroom on the side. So that will improve that.
And I don't see how somebody wouldn't want windows in this office if that's truly going to be an office. I think this needs to come back one more time. I don't know if we can give them direction today other than getting rid of the hip roof, making the entry more predominant, and adding some windows to this house. The floor plan just seems odd,
Mm-hmm.
especially the bathroom right in the front yard.
I think your point is well taken. However, we don't really have purview over the floor plan.
Yeah.
We certainly do on the window openings. So I do think this application has come a long way since we saw it last month, and I would like us to explore conditions so that the applicant has an opportunity to work with staff rather than having to come back. It might be a long list of conditions, but.
Yeah. I mean, there's already 6 conditions, so. It's an awfully big
The
window in
current
the bathroom.
The current conditions, I mean, they make sense. I definitely think adding that covered entryway and just sort of focusing the barrel tile on that would add, to everyone's point, a little bit more complexity to the elevation. But, you know, with the current conditions in place, that would kind of, that would add to it.
So how would we write that condition?
You'd almost say that would be in condition 6. It's kind of piggybacking off of condition 6.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody want to give a stab at a motion, or would you like to get assistance on the wording? I don't know if James, if you want to provide the wording, or if our architect on the board wants to provide the wording.
Well, in order to reflect my condition, I would suggest that the applicant work with staff to incorporate a covered portico evocative of the historical photograph that comports with the setbacks and is offset on one of the two sides, as well as the central portion, and only that portion incorporate a barrel tile roof.
Okay.
Do you want to make the motion?
He said, do you want to make the motion?
Do I want to make much? Sure.
Thank you.
Are there any, well, let me get through this part first. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 2342 for new construction in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, specifically 9 and 10, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff memo, staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of the request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguard that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The Secretariat of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 9449 of the city's Zoning and Land Development Regulations, and the conditions include the following. The tile portions of the roof shall be roofed with a true barrel tile that shall be limited to a front covered entry offset to one side that complies with the zoning regulations and is evocative of the historical photograph presented in the staff presentation. Condition 2, all windows shall feature clear glass and either white or bronze frames with dimensional muttons. Windows B and G shall be revised to 2 casements rather than a horizontal slider window. Doors E and F shall be revised to French doors rather than sliding glass doors. The windows on the side elevation shall feature decorative sills to match the ones on the front elevation. Do we want to add more windows to those side elevations? No?
Yes.
And shall include additional elevations along both sides, at minimum 2 additional windows on either side, to be reviewed and approved by staff. And the front door shall be revised to a more appropriate mission-style door with the proposed fan light above the door removed. And obviously, this is specific to option A in the presentation.
I second.
You included your condition
Yes.
about pulling the,
I did as part of condition 1.
Okay.
And was that understandable? Great.
great. And we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project approved. Thank you very much.
No.
You can direct any questions or comments to staff. Thank you. Our next case is case number 23-56, 734 Ardmore Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So,
Thank you for your time.
did
Thank you.
so they have this, or?
They should, yeah, it's in the packet,
Okay.
but if you want to hand it out just in case. But I have it here for you as well.
Okay. Yeah. With the new, well, I'll explain in a second. Good evening. For the record, David Lawrence with David Lawrence Architecture. Just want to make sure with the new software that's uploaded, it was very confusing, so I want to make sure you guys had what we usually submit, and it looks like you do, so I killed some trees for no good reason. So let's start with the overview. The house was built in 1925 by C.K. Villiers. They went back and took a lot of the plaster off the walls, and when they did, it was just gone. So we did a pretty detailed survey of everything, and it just seemed like there was just no reasonable way to save it. All we were going to be doing was be rebuilding, 6 feet of wall, 6 feet of wall, 6 feet of wall. So what we decided, so I'll go through the items of why, of what's happened, and then I'll just, and you have the summaries from the 2 structural engineers who have been to the site. One of them didn't want to go on the 2nd floor, but he did. Okay, so we have serious degradation of the felts and the metal lath, which have rusted and basically become a conduit for water to come into the building. And once the water's in, it's just eaten everything up, so the studs behind it, and 75 to 80% of it are gone. There's extensive termite damage, and it's compromised the structural integrity of the building. There's a molly column in the front where the whole front of the thing would fall down if it wasn't there. The initial floor framing was inadequate, and you can see in one of my pictures underneath where it's propped up with 2x4s and concrete blocks so it doesn't sag. So we have a combination of bad initial design and decisions, then we have 50s window replacements that went wrong, and years of neglect. You put all those things together, and regrettably, you've got something that unfortunately has to come down. So what we decided to do was go back to this thing and do as detailed a survey as we could. And so let's see. So these are the 2 engineering summaries here that basically say, one of them says it's a hazard, and the other one says that it's just not salvageable. This is the context. This street's a very widely varied street in terms of the elements. Probably the largest number of houses is probably Med, I would say, and they're in the closest proximity. This house being a Med Revival house, the one across the street being Med Revival, and the one to the east being Med Revival. So in its immediate proximity, the Med Revival. And our intent was to duplicate the front facade of the house as closely as possible. So duplicate the tower, all the scale elements and everything else so that it looked like it did. So that was our what we did. Let's see. So this is the context here. We are subdividing this lot. We will be back with another application for this other house. We wanted to focus more thoroughly on this one, and we just didn't feel like we had it together enough to bring the other one at the same time. But you can see here, this house has the tower feature, and this house that's next to it that exists still has the tower feature, Mediterranean Revival, and then the one across the street, right here, directly across the street's right here is Med Revival. Okay, so, and this is more vernacular, I guess you could say. This is the existing building with the one-story garage structure in the back. It's in extremely poor condition. Also, a lot of this, the soil's up above the line. You know, it's crawl space, so that it's just eating everything up. So this is the site plan showing all the zoning diagrams. This is the future lot to be created. And what we did initially was we really wanted to try to stay true to form of this thing. So we talked with staff, and we felt that maybe it made sense to go ahead and put the carport on and do and ask for the variance, because it would clearly violate the code. But so that's why we put it on there, was to be more faithful to the original house. But we're in agreement with staff, and that at condition we would take it off to comply with the code. So this is a close-up view of the first floor. As you can see, this part of the house, the front, all the features, all these elements, all the parapets and everything, that little tower, all that's the same through back to here. We're using the same. The house has these little faux porches or faux little balconies, and we're with the rails, and we're duplicating all that in the brackets. So we're trying to be as faithful as we can to the original. This part of the house in the back is different, but this part from here on through is the same. And this is the accessory structure where we have a garage in the back. So we have 9 in the main house. We have 9 feet and 9 feet, and in the garage we have 8'4" and 9 feet for the guest apartment. And then in the front, this is higher because this is an existing parapet structure, and if we stay true to the form of the building, we can get some higher ceilings in there, and so we sure like to do it. So this is the second floor, where we've created one additional bedroom, laundry room, primary bedroom, primary bath, primary closets. And then this is a volume space, because the scale of what was original really couldn't support, the ceilings are just, they don't really work out, and we felt that it was more important to kind of preserve the proportions of the original front tower. So that's a volume space. And this is the roof, and what we decided to do too is that we use the low slope roof, or not a low slope, it's a 4 and 12, which matches the existing. We explored using parapets on the additions and up above, but we found when we did that it exaggerated the scale of the two-story portions, and we thought this was a better solution. And we created the flat on the top to keep the overall roof line to be more minimal. So these are the existing elevations. Now, in the staff report, they mentioned that we put this new balcony here. When we went through and the building was demolished, what we found was there was a framed opening there that duplicated the framed opening that was here. So it stands to reason that, and you can see that over time, the person who took very poor care of this before it was sold just kind of covered these up. This is there are beautiful arched windows behind this. And so what we did was that when we measured it, it was the same as this. So we thought, we'll just put it back. And since we took the clues from these little, faux balconies, that we put a faux balcony up there. So this is what we came up with. This is, we got on ladders and measured all this up. So this is a total duplication of this element. And this part of the facade and the shapes of these parapets is identical to what's there, or as close as we can get. And so what we tried to do is salvage some of the original pieces. So we're going to try to salvage these medallions and these numbers. And there's some pieces in the front yard that can be salvaged, and we think we can salvage those brackets. This whole piece here is so gone, there's nothing that really can be salvaged off of it. So that's the front. And then, so these are the original sides. And this coming off, this is the carport that would be coming off. And it'll actually be nice because it really kind of constricted these windows that were there that we're putting back. So it'll be an attractive thing. So you can see we've duplicated all of this, we've duplicated all that, but this is proposed to come off, and then this is the addition back behind it. So this is the east side. Let's see, this is the original. So we've duplicated that, the brackets and the little faux balconies. And this is the front where we talk about we'll use a concrete barrel style, true barrel style, and then we're going to salvage what we can from these brackets and elements of the existing house to kind of bring some of that back. And so these are the perspectives of the front as it would be restored. And this is the back. And this is the accessory structure with the garage. And we're borrowing cues from the existing house. This parapet is similar to the one in the front of the house, and these brackets are similar to the ones that are on the east facade of the building. And that's it.
Questions of the applicant?
Hi, David.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
It's such a shame. I've been following this house for over 30 years.
Yeah, it is.
And I know you love historic homes like we do, so it's a shame to see that this has deteriorated. I remember touring this house, and one of the things that I hate to see go is this porte cochere, because it has that unique ceiling. Any way to save it in your design? Is it just a setback because you're splitting the lot?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we proposed it that way. Initially, we thought, well, can we, since we're trying to put back what was there, but I mean, I see staff's rationale for it is that, hey, look, it's not an existing house, it's a new house.
Yeah.
House means you don't have a good reason,
right?
Other than you're trying to duplicate what's there. So, we put it in, and we don't disagree with them. Just we thought it looked, more authentic or more in reference to what was there. But
agreed.
That's what did it.
I mean, is there precedence that you are aware of that you could get a variance for that? Because it's really not up to us, so.
I thought variances were in your
Oh, it is
purview.
up to us? Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it is in your purview to approve a variance for that.
And then I'm just a little confused about some of your elevations, because the second story addition of the new house and your renders you showed, I'm looking at A11, and it just seems so massive. The step back upstairs, the second story just seems so massive compared to, let's say, the original house. Is there a way to reduce that massing? I know you're trying to max out square footage, but it just...
Yeah, it's not a very big house, and we kind of tried to live with the footprint down below. And you can see that that's all the way back, how far back that is.
What's that?
That's a bedroom right there.
But what's the portion behind your cursor that's all gray right now?
This?
No, keep going to the front of the house. Above.
Here?
Yeah, right there.
That's the stairwell coming up.
Okay.
We could.
And that's new?
Yes, we could cut that down. That's this piece here, but it's only sticking out maybe 3 feet from that other wall.
Is there a way to reduce your height of that new second story so that it's a little bit more in line with the current second story?
We did 9 and 9, which was what we thought was, given, but I mean, it's gotta be, we would really prefer to keep 9 on the first floor and,
Right.
and 9 in the primary, but if we had to bring this down to 8, we could do that.
And your roof seems a little, is the pitch the same or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Just seems, just the way that it's drawn, okay. Oh, boy, okay. I do like what the elements you have kept and the changes, so I just hate to see this lot split. It's such a amazing property. It's probably one of my favorite historic homes in Flamingo Park. I worked on 3 houses on this street, and it's a shame to see this is deteriorated so badly because it's an amazing house. So that's all for now.
We've worked on some other ones, and sometimes you open up and they're fine, like over at 2527 Flagler. I was surprised that one is in great shape, but a lot of times it's not, so this is one of them.
Yes, hi. Are there any of the exterior features that are to be remain? Your image shows the front entry feature is deteriorated in the rear. That element what's the material, and that's deteriorated?
Yeah, I think there might be a photograph of that.
There is, and it just wasn't.
It's all. Remember, this is all wood frame. So I mean, if you look at the back of this element here, it's completely gone. It's rotted out from the back because the flashings and everything are gone. And I mean, it's kind of surprising this hasn't cracked or fallen off.
So when you say it's to be replicated, are you doing a laser scan or taking a mold of it?
Well, it was kind of Dave's scan. I got up on a ladder and measured everything carefully.
And the chimney is not made of wood, so is the chimney to remain?
It's going to be so hard to keep that when you take everything down around it. But we kept we were salvaging the internals, the mantle and all that. But the problem you run into is, how's that built? Can it stand up? Do you save it, and then the next hurricane that falls down and everything on top of the house? So I mean, we duplicated, we measured. I got on the roof and measured all those dimensions. It's dimensionally identical to what's there.
And it's a one-story house now.
Yes.
I agree about the porte cochere. I think it's a shame, and all variances, regardless of what the criteria may say, are not created equal. That said, I do think that the massing appears a little large, but I think that's through deception, because that one tower element isn't really occupiable from what I could tell. It's double height.
Yeah.
But I think the addition can be massaged a little to be reduced in mass a little bit.
Okay. I'm trying to get back to that.
Were the full engineering reports submitted, or just the 2 pages that are in our packet?
It was not, but I have copies of this here.
And is the property owner here?
He's not.
I understand from the warranty deed that's included in the packet that the property owner has owned it for about 2.5 years. Is that correct? What has been done to secure the site in that time?
Only recently, it's been boarded up and secured.
So it's been left open to the elements for 2 years or so?
Yes, but the damage that's there was well ahead of that. I don't think that anything anybody could have done 2 years ago would stop where it is right now.
Well, I guess it's just, I don't know, a bit confusing that this already came before us and we approved for basically a rehabilitation project. And now, after more time has elapsed, knowing the site has not been secured, that a demolition, an outright demolition is being requested. And clearly, as you said, this was not in good condition when the property owner purchased it. So presumably, they were aware of the condition when they purchased it.
Well, what I would say is this, is that, there was another architect on this project, and I do not think at the time that he did his preparation of his drawings, I don't know, I have not talked to him about it, but, all the plaster came off later, more recently, as they anticipated starting, and they had plans into the building department. They had completed plans for the prior design into the building department, and that's when it just became very apparent that this thing was just gone. So that's when they kind of regrouped on it. But I don't know. I don't know if I do not think all that was pulled off and that the extent of that was known at the time. I doubt it.
I think it's challenging for me only seeing portions of these reports. I'm not even sure what parts of the house these images were taken because they're not labeled. I think it's difficult to tell from some of these pictures how much was exploratory demolition and how much was the building.
All the plaster was removed from the outside walls, and that's when it was discovered that there was an incredible amount of termite damage. One, two, the way the building was framed, the header openings and things like that, they're not even done right. So all those have got to be redone. So if you think about it, and there are a lot of openings in this house, so every single opening has to be redone. The termite damage that's there.
I think for me, this is something obviously as a board we don't take very lightly. And I just would like to see more information. Right now I'm looking at page 4 of the Hustad structural engineering report, and I'm not sure is this the guest house or is this the main residence? Where is that located on the property?
I mean, I guess we can come back next month and do an incredibly detailed thing. I can tell you that I would say 75 to 80%. I mean, if you want us to give you a mathematical tally, I guess we can do that. But
I mean, I would like to do a site visit if you'd be willing to set that up. I mean, that's something that I've done in the past.
Sure.
For demolition projects.
We'll have one of our structural engineers there.
And are there any images with the ONM and J reports?
They're not in that, what I
Okay.
brought with me today, but I mean, I can get you all that.
Okay.
Are you talking about an individual site visit? Just you?
I mean, I have in the past with
Okay,
with
no, that's
architects.
fine. It's
Yeah,
just
just
if it-
me, not with
Okay.
not with the members of the
Yeah, because I'm
board.
just worried about sunshine and government.
Of course, yes. And I encourage anyone else on the board who's
Yeah,
interested.
I'd like
in
a site
doing
visit as well.
visit. I
Yeah.
mean,
So if you guys are gonna do a site visit, we need to.
individually.
Okay, without one another.
No,
Okay.
yeah, we will not coordinate
Gotcha.
with each other. We'll
Gotcha, okay.
individually schedule it. But like I said, this is rare. It's rare to approve demolition of a contributing structure, and I think it's something that we should take very seriously as a board and make sure that we have all the information that we need to make an educated decision. So,
Regarding the chimney that was mentioned, couldn't you do things like replace the flue and repoint the chimney beforehand and put a scaffolding structure to hold it up?
I guess what my concern is that, you're looking at a brick structure that's very narrow and it's not reinforced. And, you know, if you're going to go through all this effort to fix everything, that it just doesn't, that brick's been there a long time, and you can tell by the way everything else has been kept up, it's not in great shape, and I just don't think it's in good enough shape to save. But, I mean, if you want us to get the structural engineers to speak to the specificity of that, I guess we can do that.
I mean, it's, you know, it seems to me as long as the brick itself isn't crumbling, if it's just a matter of joints and flue replacement.
It's just that once you bring this up to code,
Yeah.
everything has to be up to code.
Oh, geez.
Right? And because you've exceeded the threshold for a renovation, and when that happens, it's got to be able to withstand 140-mile-an-hour wind loads, and I can assure you that that chimney won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not much I can do to make it do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the unfortunate thing.
Thank you.
So I tend to agree with what you say about the chimney, but I'm not really convinced just from the information here. Basically, what I'm reading are things that are easily fixed. I mean, you know, the strapping can be done, replacing wood can be done. The fact that it says that the thickness of the slab isn't known just concerns me a little bit, when somebody could go out and dig that and try to come up with some testing. So, I mean, I'd like to participate in the walkthrough.
Okay, you're right. If the studs were if 75 to 80% of the studs were in decent shape, yeah, you could strap it. But when you've got the extended termite damage that you have, you know, you're just you're basically duplicating it a portion at a time, you know, and that's what doesn't really, to me, make any sense, because it's basically you're just building a new wood frame building, you know, a little bit at a time. And it's going to basically be the preponderance of what's there is going to have to be replaced. You know.
But David, just because you mentioned it, the owner plans to split this lot.
Does.
But there are other historic buildings on the lot that is adjacent to this. It's actually part of this property right now. Correct.
A carport and a little tiny shed and a pool.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, I thought there was a long two-story garage with above apartment.
Well, no, on the part that's where the building is, there is a garage apartment building. And the garage door is in the wrong place, so you could never really use that properly as a garage, because you can never really back out of it because the house is behind it, so it never really worked right.
Okay.
In response to your previous comments, I will say that we have had properties that have been in this condition and have been restored in this neighborhood. And I think, yes, if you do have to replace and repair piece by piece, at least you have an opportunity to preserve original features, which it's much more challenging to do with outright demolition.
Okay, so let's go around one piece at a time. All right. Front entry canopy piece, gone. It's totally rotted out from the backside. So that's gone. All the studs that are on either side of those arched windows, that's to the right of the front door, 90% of that's gone. Now let's walk around to the side where that is. Half of that's not framed right, and there's rot there. In the back, the entire thing is gone, and there are pictures of that. We'll take you there, you can see it.
Yeah. No, it just seems that at this point, we're going back and forth, and nobody's going to convince each other of your position, and until the board can actually see it and say yes or no. You know?
Sure, I understand. We'll take it.
I think that, I mean, I don't doubt what you are saying. Actually, I agree with you. My only problem with this is that, now this house was built in 1925, right? 98 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it withstood all the hurricanes, storms, everything. And it appears that in the last couple of years, it's just completely got destroyed. And we want to understand that. I I mean, I know MJ, I trust Joe, I trust what he's saying. But all this argument about was built this way, the floor was not built, well, that was built in 1925, right? And it's still up till today.
The floor is only up because there's a piece of concrete on a thing with little sticks holding it to
understand.
keep it from falling down. I mean, it's not, you know, I mean, in the prior approval, they were removing all of that. They were going to put a concrete slab. That was the prior approval. It was not even to keep any of the crawl space. So, okay, well, guess we'll take a deferral, and if you would, each of you wants, whoever would like to go see it, will contact our office. We'll make arrangements for you to be able to see it. And
If you're going to do that, arrangements should be made through the city,
through the store. Yeah,
because they cannot go together.
yeah, I understand.
And I'd like to be notified when, okay.
Okay.
Should we still take the staff report? What do you
Sure.
think? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. Still hear the staff report.
I'll be quick. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-56 for demolition and new construction at 734 Ardmore Road. This is in the Flamingo Park Historic District. This property was constructed in 1925. The request is for demolition and new construction of both the primary and accessory structures. The existing structure is contributing. It is currently about 1,775 square feet. And the request is for construction of a new two-story single-family residence intended to replicate the existing in style. Total square footage of 3,167, including a rear two-story garage and guest suite, as well as general site work, and as the applicant indicated, eventually probably a lot split. As you can see here, as the board was alluding to, there has been quite a bit of deterioration on the site over the last couple of years. I believe the image on the bottom right is from November 2021, and the image on the left is from April 2022, where a portion of the front of the home did fail. These are some older photos that were from the previous presentation, showing a better view of the site, since there is currently a large construction fence. As you can see here, the demolition justification, the applicant covered that pretty well. The site photos and the existing items that the applicant has indicated they would like to salvage. Per the submitted documentation, the structure may not be capable of being repaired or reused, and therefore staff is recommending approval of the demolition with the deference to the architect and the structural engineers that have been on site. This is the proposed site plan, which does include the carport as currently exists. And this is the proposed site plan, which proposes putting that carport back in that spot. That would require a total 7-foot 6-inch variance for both side setbacks, as the carport would be 6 inches from the one side setback and the other side setback would be too small. This is the historic context. As you can see, that is an original carport, or at least old enough to be on the Sanborn map. And it is roughly in still the same configuration as it was originally. These are the existing elevations and the proposed. This includes adding a second story in the back, the existing and the proposed. And this is the previous request that the board heard a little bit over a year ago for an addition on this site, just for context. Here are some renderings. We do believe the new construction meets applicable codes. We applaud the applicant's decision to reconstruct the building. However, As the board stated, obviously, the most ideal condition would be retaining the contributing structure. So we are recommending approval with the condition that if the applicant intends to submit for a lot split, the design should be amended to meet current setbacks, which would involve removing the proposed carport, as it would no longer be a legal nonconformity. I would actually also like to recommend a second condition. I noticed that it's proposed to not have a barrel tile, and if it is eventually approved, I would prefer a true barrel tile. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
Do you know, and this is a question for you or for David, I don't know, but do you know the new house, right, constructed house, is being put exactly in the same place or is moved?
I'm just basing it off of the site plan it appears to be. I think you can probably speak better to that. Yes, it is.
Any further questions of staff? Does this property have any ongoing code violations?
It doesn't have any current ones, but I believe it does have a lien on the property of some kind.
So there is a lien?
Yes.
Because code violations weren't fixed?
From what I can tell,
So therefore,
yes.
code can't go back and offer new violations because there's currently liens in open cases.
That's what's showing up in community laws.
It could indicate that. It could indicate that the case came into compliance, but there's still a lien on it because they never came back to mitigate it. I don't know what the situation is. It could indicate ongoing code enforcement. I don't know without further information.
Okay, thank you.
At what point does this become a demolition by neglect?
I think frankly, it already seems like it may be.
So what are the typical proceedings for that?
I think that would mostly be handled by code enforcement. That's not something that we as staff really have much enforcement power for.
Yeah, I think it would have to fall under, I'm not an expert, but I think it would have to be determined to be an unsafe structure, and then that would be the process for demolition. But
I remember in the past, we've had projects like this go to the special magistrate, and they've actually charged a fine for the loss of the building. I think it's something nominal, like $15,000, but I have spoken at those hearings in the past. So if we could look into that, I think it would be good to revisit.
Sure. We can
I think
research.
that would be a discussion with.
I
code.
think, considering the fact that there was approval for an application to rehabilitate this building, obviously, there was no need to pursue a demolition by neglect for this property, but obviously, there were other plans for this site. And I think it would be good to refresh, at least myself, on those proceedings.
Absolutely.
And is there any kind of purview over historical lot splits? Because it appears that this was always a double lot. And by the current owner wanting to split it, then we're losing, to me, one of the most historically significant things of the house is that's the portico share with its interesting coffered ceiling, and I don't know what you call that feature in the middle, but it stands out to me. And I hate to see, I like David's renders because he's keeping all of those things, but I would hate to have this come back.
He's reconstructing them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, he's reconstructing
Like, we
them.
have a total loss of historic material here.
We do. So I'm having difficulty seeing that portico share leave this site. And by keeping it, I think we'd have difficulty even with the variance to keep it, because we're basically giving them a variance because they want to split the lot.
Yes.
When this has historically been a 100-foot wide lot. And I think that the design could change to incorporate the existing lot so that the massing is not so great and that the character of the existing house remains. So
as far as the lot split process, a lot split would be something that would be processed administratively, assuming that it met all current setbacks.
okay.
In this case, say this house were to remain as constructed, with the carport being located where it is, they would require a variance, which would come to you to hear for a lot split. Prior to being able to do that, where it becomes complicated here is because they are also requesting to demolish the existing house. I'm certainly personally not advocating for removing the carport. I think it is a nice feature. However, if they are going to be requesting that lot split in the future, the only way to do it administratively would be with that carport no longer existing. And as far as a variance goes, that would be up to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Thank you. Do any members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Smith. I live downhill from this house, and I'm just appalled by this request. First of all, you're rewarding somebody for neglecting and abandoning a house for 2.5 years. They opened up this house, they knocked that jalousie window, knocked the entire corner down, and they just recently, within the last couple of months, maybe a month ago, boarded it up. So they intentionally opened up this house so it could be destroyed by the elements. As he said, that house has been standing since 1922, according to property tax records. And so we're going to have a historic neighborhood of a bunch of AI-generated replicas of demolished houses rather than historic restoration. I'm infuriated. Never mind the density, a lot split, and you're going to have this massive, intense, 2-story structure right next to me. That's just appalling. I can't believe this is even being entertained. You have any questions for me?
If you could state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Smith, 746 Ardmore. I have the little Florida vernacular house downhill from that house. And I was so excited when this property finally sold because I thought, finally, someone sees the beauty of this house. I mean, it's gorgeous, you know, and the gentleman who had it for several decades apparently didn't have the means to restore it. But the new owner bought it at like land prices, and he knew what he was getting. And so apparently this was always the plan, to like just neglect it and have it collapse and then be rewarded by being allowed to demolish it and split the lot. That's outrageous. And I do not want to see that as a precedent for that neighborhood where other speculators go in, buy houses, knock a hole in it, and let the elements do their job. And say, oh, the termites, I have to treat my house for termites once a year. That's an annual thing, you know? Every house in Florida that's made of wood has to tent their house every couple of years. That's just the way it is. They left it open, there's raccoons, there's an abandoned swimming pool there, and then they're saying, oh, let us split this property in two, demolish the whole house, and make it look somewhat similar if AI or Apple generated it. No, that's absolutely outrageous.
Thank you for taking the time to be here and speak. We appreciate it. Do we have any further public comment? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and this committee. This is my first meeting of ever coming. I am a homeowner. Recently, I own 705 Ardmore, which happens to be one of the few double lots in the neighborhood. I'm encouraged that you have great concern about this project. I have seen this house. It has been left into neglect. I would agree with my neighbor that rewarding someone for letting a historical project. I live in New York. I sought Flamingo Park because of how special it is. I bought the house next door to me, which is a little nothing house. I bought it to save it for the neighborhood. I am restoring an 810 square foot nothing little house, and I'm spending $1 million to do so. To see this property go from, and shall I speculate? I'm going to speculate. This is a real estate developer deal. With all due respect to the architect and his plan, which is quite lovely from a picture, the reality is this is a subdivision of one of the last great properties in the neighborhood that I came to and I've invested to. I think probably to date, I'm the most expensive house in Flamingo Park. And I say that with pride because I love Flamingo Park. And to see that this house has been let go to this so that it could become what it's going to become. It's an overmassed project. The guest house, and just seeing what he's planned here, is overscale for a size of a lot, but the question I ask even greater is what's going on in the next lot? To overdevelop something in a neighborhood that should never be to begin with, which will have no historical value to it because there's no historical precedent to it to put in its place. In a neighborhood that, having looked from all the other neighborhoods around, including Il Cid, Flamingo Park is the little jewel of west of Dixie. And I can understand from a business point of view what to do. I personally have looked into this property because I wanted to buy it to save it. It's in a shell corporation. It is not a homeowner who is going to live in this home. If it is, I'd love to meet him and welcome him to the neighborhood. I don't believe it's so. So I plead to you in this body that is intended to save something historical. I have saved 2 historical homes, one in Charleston, one in Savannah. I understand it. I care passionately about it. And to allow something that absolutely could have been saved, not be saved in a 2-year period, is the beginning of a plan that unfortunately this body is going to give permission to or not. So I came from New York today to stay here today to come to this meeting because I care so passionately about this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And could you just state your name for the record? I think we got your address, but just your name as well.
David Monn, M-O-N-N.
Thank you so much. Do you have any further public comment? Would you like a rebuttal?
I guess I'd like to address some of the things that have been said. One of them is, there was a prior plan that went to this board. The massing of it is larger than what this is. Okay, granted, it was on 2 lots, but if you look at the original site plan that was approved before, it was all onto one side. The first approval was larger than what this is. So the idea that this was the plan all along, it was not. He went, he sought out an architect, he got plans, and he got into it, and it was a mess. Now, could he have taken better care of the property? Absolutely. I don't think anyone here can argue that for a split second, But the damage that's been done to this thing has been over a long period of time, not just 2 years. Now, has more damage been done to it 2 years because it hasn't been properly protected? Yes. Is it of the level that has caused it to now be to the point where it's demolished? I don't believe so. All right. So there was another plan. There were permits applied for. There were permits paid. So this idea that this is some secret plan that all along they were going to demolish it, no, it wasn't. The guy got into it and he said, wow, how do I do this? How do I rebuild all this? It's a mess. And that's when, the other alternative came into the fore. So that would be my rebuttal, is not that, I just don't want this, this board to think that, that was some ulterior plan, because from what I could see, and look, we weren't the original architects, we were brought in later. I saw it when all the plaster was off the walls and things were collapsing, and I said, tear it down. You know, I wasn't part of it until months ago, but you know, this thing, the fuse was lit on this thing well before 2 years ago. It's in just terrible shape. So that's all I got.
Thank you. We'll go into executive session.
I'd like to start only because I want to not shift the conversation, but I want to say something, going to my original comment, that looking at this as the second floor addition to this house, I have a great problem with imagining this structure was being preserved, and they're proposing that second floor addition and the two-story accessory structure in the rear. Knowing, however, that and that was my first blush of reviewing this application over the weekend, is that I thought it was a second floor addition to this house, and then I started to pay attention to the drawings. But even when I thought it was a restoration project and an addition, I thought the addition was overscaled and took away from the double height tower element, and the two-story garage structure in the back was just completely out of character and out of scale. Knowing, however, the story and further analyzing it, I further affirm that I believe that the massing is too great on the second floor. The proportions are changed, and I reiterate the concerns brought by our chairwoman about wanting additional evidence about elements to be retained. On-site visits, certainly there are elements that could probably be shored that may complicate construction, no doubt, but the proliferation of the loss of materials is something that we are tasked with, part of our commission. And you know, I just wanted to go on record and say that the actual scale of the second floor, to me, is inappropriate for the scale of the first floor.
I really don't see what direction this project is going to go. It's too massive. At least the addition is. There's only glimpses of the original house in the design that we were presented. And I would not ever support a variance to tear the porte cochere down. Yet, since it's going to be built as a new house, it will require a variance. I think this owner should look again at this massive lot that they have. It's very rare to have such a large lot, and I think a complete redesign could benefit this house, including the accessory structure. So I'm trying to give David some thoughts of a direction to go, but I just kind of lost for words here. So I would like to do a site visit, though.
I feel an incredible burden as the longest standing board member on this board of everyone seated here this evening, just to provide institutional knowledge on the amount of times that we've dealt with proposals like this. And really, there haven't been many. I can probably count them on one hand. And certainly, I can think of another property, I want to say on Flamingo, that was in a very, very similar condition. And that project did come in for demolition, and we denied it, and the property was restored. I mean, there's also another property on Washington that, when you do a demolition, you also have to have plans for new construction approved concurrently, and that property is still a vacant lot to this day. So it's just sitting there, sitting on the market. And again, it was the same situation where a property owner purchased it knowing the condition that it was in and let it sit there and further deteriorate, and maybe didn't help it along the way. Maybe they did help it along the way, but they certainly didn't do anything to prevent it from further deteriorating. And that resonates with me, the comments of the neighbors, that certainly that's not behavior that we should condone or encourage as a historic board. And so I just am very conflicted about this application, also full knowing that out there in the near future, no matter what we decide perhaps, that there is this proposal for a lot split that's a separate application. And I just, it's very concerning. It's very concerning, and you can just see from the images that we were shown how much worse it is today, 2 or so years later, from when we originally approved the last application. So this is so concerning on so many levels, and I can't even get past the demolition portion to look at what's being proposed for the addition. It's something that's extremely concerning, and I'm very conflicted about.
Apropos to what you said about demolition, and if what the neighbor said about a shell corporation is true, if demolition is denied, and other actions that the board can take could create a financial disincentive for the owner, and he may just throw up his hands and sell it to somebody else who might be more interested in doing a different sort of job.
The lot split definitely lends itself to be more of like a development play. I mean, an end user, I'd imagine, would want to have a double lot. Obviously that's conjecture. We don't really have any hard proof. Not that matters, but in this instance, but definitely at least doing a site visit, because to the testimony of the neighbors would definitely detract from, this. You could imagine this in El Cid. You really can't imagine this in Flamingo Park with the scale and the massing, even with what's being proposed now. Do we have any recourse for letting a building get to such a state of disrepair? Is that something that's within our purview, or is that that's a code level? But I mean, specifically as it relates to historic structures.
I actually don't know the answer to that, but we're gonna get it. We'll get it for you.
Because I could see this being a rinse and repeat. I toured a property in Prospect Park, and it was the same thing. It was obviously in disrepair, and you could see if someone bought it and just let it sit, did some demolition. Naturally, it's not conforming to code, but depending on who the individual is, they could obviously just sit on that until it gets to a point where it's easier for them just to replace it entirely, citing structural deficiencies.
Ms. Amanda mentioned a $15,000 figure earlier, and that seems to be a general problem with those sorts of fines, that they in no way match, say, like the damage that's done, or and a disincentive for a person to do the right thing. They'll say, "Oh, $15,000, nothing," $30,000, $500,000. You name the number, and it's just the system itself. Fines simply do not keep up with the level of damage that can be inflicted.
It's like the qualitative or quantitative damages, effectively, is what that argument is.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of in other municipalities that have strong preservation ordinances that when such a matter as demolition by neglect occurs, that the Historic Preservation Board in those other municipalities have the authority to require the applicant or future applicant to replicate the existing structure, period. The existing structure is 1,775 square feet. They're proposing, I think, a 65% increase in the mass to over 3,000 square feet. So while I certainly don't think I'm downplaying the demolition, I do want to bring up the notion of what they're shoving on the site, provided that they're going to do the lot split application. So I think that when a preservation ordinance has stronger teeth, or if this board were to not approve anything other than the existing footprint, mass and height of what is going to be demolished, is something to really contemplate.
I'd like to make a motion to defer for a couple months to November meeting. I don't have the date.
Yeah, I don't think that it's necessary. You can just postpone it indefinitely.
Okay.
Or to be continued.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to continue this case for a future date.
Do we need to give a date as part of the motion?
You can, but if it's going to be re-advertised, it's okay to not have the date.
Okay,
And I think it's going to be re-advertised, so.
okay. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to do some research into demolition by neglect.
Thank
And get
you.
back to you. There are some, I just quickly did, and I don't believe that we have that in our code currently.
Really?
Right. But we'll bring you a brief report on it.
Has it been eliminated from the code? Because I know I've requested in the past a demolition by neglect.
So I believe, and this is just, again, a cursory understanding of it, I believe that's usually handled actually by the Code Enforcement Division. So it's something that we could notify them of.
Yes.
And speak to certainly, but they're the ones that handle that portion of the, I guess,
Okay.
adjudication. It's not something that the board itself would
Okay.
But
enforce.
I don't actually think that there is a I could be wrong, and I can't do the research as I sit here. But we'll figure it out and we'll let you know.
Well, can I request right now that the code enforcement look into this property for demolition
Absolutely,
by
yes.
neglect?
That is something that we can certainly report to them, and I can
Okay.
speak to the code officer and get more background on
That
what
would be
exactly
great.
has been enforced in this particular case.
Thank you.
And if we can keep talking about it, I agree with what James says. Last resource, they can't rebuild a new house. They have to restore the existing one. Or rebuild the existing one.
Okay. So our last case is 22-37A, 221 Greenwood Drive.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rick Bennett with Bennett White Construction, and we are undertaking the renovation at 221 Greenwood Drive. And thank you for seeing me this evening. I'm here on behalf of Polly Doherty and the owners, Jim and Noel Hughes. So forgive the brevity, but it's relatively straightforward. The current structure has wood siding, and the intent was during this renovation to do selective demo of the wood siding and replace what was damaged. And as we began to do demo of the siding, realized there was a tremendous amount of rot. So as we discovered this rot and reported this back to the homeowners and also the architect, they proposed the idea of doing a replacement of all wood siding with a stucco to mimic the siding. And essentially really for durability, long-term, they're considering long-term costs of upkeep and maintenance and so forth. And so that is what we are proposing. And that concludes my short presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
And although I also do have a sample that's very heavy, so I can lug it up here if you'd like to see it, that mimics what we'd like to do, if anybody's interested.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Are you aware of staff's recommendation?
We are, yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah,
Okay,
apropos to that, what percentage of the clapboards, if you had to replace them, what percentage will you need to replace?
We anticipate, based on what we've seen, probably at least 50%.
50?
Probably 50%. Not having gone and done a full demolition and ripped everything out, we want to protect the interior, but we anticipate probably 50% it being needed to be replaced.
Is that clapboard that was originally put in there, are the dimensions of that still available?
They are, yes.
Okay.
any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 22-37A for alterations at 221 Greenwood Drive. This property is located in the Prospect Southland Park neighborhood. The original approval for the project was heard back in 2022. The current request is fairly simple. It is just to replace the existing wood siding with stucco to imitate wood siding. Here are site photos, which the applicant just showed, showing the current wood siding on the building. There does appear to be some level of rot. However, the original approval condition for the project when it was first heard was that the siding would be retained when possible and replaced with a wood siding of equal width and profile if necessary. And this is a standard request in historic districts for pretty much any property. Typically, we recommend that if there is wood siding that is retained, and the request to replace it with stucco, staff did not feel was appropriate. Here you can see the elevations. Really, the only change from the original approval is that siding being replaced with stucco. We don't believe that this meets the codes, particularly regarding destroying historic materials and replacing them with similar materials, and are therefore recommending denial of the proposed alterations.
Questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into I'm sorry. Anyone on the public want to speak on this project? Anyone for the public? Okay, thank you. We'll go into executive session.
I can make a motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Board deny application number 22-37A for alterations. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the staff report that competent substantial evidence of record has not been submitted that satisfy the standards set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Ordinance number 3554-02, the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, specifically Standards 9 and 10, which state that for 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic material, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be comparable with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. Standard 10 states new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Project denied. Thank you. With that,
I just want to let you know, I found, it's section 94-52.
okay,
So
good.
we're-
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's still there.
I do a little research, quick research, so we're going to get in touch with code and have them take a look at it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further items for discussion?
Madam Chair, if I may, on the matter of demolition, there was an application that we saw at our commission not too long ago on South Dixie Highway, I think address 1801, that's gone. And what's concerning is that at the meeting, I think it's for the Hive,
Bed and bath,
the Hive book,
bath or something.
not a bookstore, a furniture store maybe?
Yes.
And it was a new alteration. I don't know if my commissioners remember this, but I did ask the applicant the extent of demolition, and and staff, and they said that it was minimal to accommodate the new facade and the new interior. And I don't know if any of the commissioners noticed, but the site is now vacant. And I know for those that are passionate about historic preservation, if you've been paying attention to what's happened on the other side of the lagoon, we certainly hope it's not a cloud of demolition that's following me. But there certainly is a kind of a proliferation of what we're seeing. And I would just respectfully request staff to look into that project. I don't know if that would have required a separate motion from this commission, as it was non-contributing, I believe, but I would imagine would still require a demolition motion and a second. And then further, what extent, you don't have to answer now, what extent does the demolition have involving loss of nonconformances for other aspects of the zoning code, whether it's open space, lot coverage, parking requirements, setbacks? So I'm sure it's already been brought to your attention, Ms. Hamilton, but I just wanted to bring it to my fellow commissioners if they have not seen it.
I haven't seen it, so the whole building's gone?
Yes, pretty much. My understanding is they got on site and felt that they needed to demolish more than was presented to the board. We have spoken to them. I need to follow up on what exactly the proper procedure for what happens next to them is. However, speaking to nonconformities and demolishing them, typically the rule that the zoning department has followed is about 75% of the existing structure needs to be retained to be considered to be retaining any sort of nonconformities. So what happened in this case certainly was not what was approved, and we will be following up with them.
And I will say, for those of you on the board, this is not the first time that a Hive application or a Hive approval has resulted in this level of demolition. Where Hive Bakery is today used to be a restaurant called Ambrosia, and pretty much outright demolition with that. So, I mean, there's definitely a pattern that's being established here, and I do think that, considering the number of properties that this property owner owns along Dixie Highway. I would like to see at what point does, you know, the current building code kick into effect and they no longer have, you know, the nonconformities carrying forward?
Yes.
Like I said earlier, there just doesn't seem to be any financial disincentives. They can just do what they want, you know, pay the money, pay the fine. Okay, go ahead.
With that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move the board to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you all.